Good morning, Miss Sydney Hughes. We are live. It's really good to see you today. Thank you so
No,
much for
it's great to
joining
see
me.
you. Love seeing you too, Jennifer.
You and we first met at a venture mentoring team event. I can't remember. Were you with Bernardo? Is that who you met with?
No,
Yeah.
no, I was invited there almost maybe a year ago, right? At Nova
Mhm.
University. That was really great.
Yeah, that was in SU. We met, and I remember that you said to me that you liked my green, the green that I was wearing, that you
It
liked my
was your power
energy
color.
or something like that, and that I reminded you of a friend who it turns out I actually know. So
Small
I
world,
think
right?
yeah, I think we were kind of meant to be connected. So Miss Sydney Hughes is the CEO of Senior Proof, and you are one of the few, but hopefully rising number of women in construction. I remember you invited me to an event once for women in construction as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. Leaders Talk Communications is all about highlighting how you manage communications at your company and with outside of your company as well, so that other leaders can gain insights from you. And we'll just jump in. So tell us about your work, Sydney. I know your story, but I want other people to know your story. Tell us about your work and what inspires you the most about what you do.
So I founded the company about 4.5 years ago after picking my father up off the floor. Um, I was caregiving for him for many years, me and my brother, and we would just swap
Mm,
weekends to go visit him up in Orlando. And at that point, I had a 3-year-old. I was caregiving for my father. I was a comptroller for a big developer in Miami, and I was
wow.
just a sandwich generation, and
Yeah.
which many
Truest
of us are
definition.
going. Yeah, the true definition of a sandwich generation. And when I found my father on the floor and I had to pick him up, I selfishly just wanted to hand over my credit card and say, whatever it takes, here it is, and just senior proof the home. And there wasn't really a company like that. And with 14 years of construction experience at that moment, I always knew that this mission was much bigger than me, right?
Mm,
This is a
mhm.
God-given, this is my legacy, and I'm just here to be of service, not only to the independent senior and creating that safe space, but also the caregiver, right? This is a new chapter in
Yeah.
life for the caregiver and also their loved ones. So we modify homes for the aging population. We are also growing nationwide with Lowe's, which is really exciting, and
Mm.
we are just really really proud of the work that we do. And I think that you haven't been to corporate yet, but through the hallways of corporate, there's pictures of black and white portraits of all of the patients that we've actually served, right? And so because we
Oh
do so much,
my.
yeah, it's beautiful. and
Mm.
and it because a lot of the people that work here internally may not be out in the field a lot, right? So we want to just remind
Yeah,
everyone of the people that we're impacting, especially our low income families that have no choice but to age in place,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
My dad is actually one of the first pictures when you walk in, and then everybody else is other patients that. So he was my first patient, and so I keep him there because he is a reminder of the impact that we're making, and not even knowing at that moment that he was my first patient, but he was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that you refer to them as your what's what makes you call them your patients and not clients?
So we have an MPI number. So we are very much a healthcare company as much as we are a construction company.
So,
We create
MPI, what is that acronym?
It's a
MPI.
national provider identification number for the medical field, and so we have
Okay.
occupational therapists that go out
Uh,
to do the evaluation first, and they provide the
okay.
safety recommendation. So our model includes occupational therapists and other medical providers that we may refer out to. We're also long-term care providers for United Healthcare and Sunshine Health and other.
Mm.
So we created a niche, and that's why I always say people are like, oh, you kind of do what this other person does. I'm like, not really. We, we're general
Yeah.
contractors. We are GCs. We are not handymen. We are not. technical. We created our own kind of bubble, and it's really so with communications, tying that into communications, um, because this is just a new industry that
Yeah.
we were kind of creating. Not everything is organic, and we're creating our own internal communications. We're not like other contractors. I can't just copy and paste their SOPs, right? But no,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
creating something really magical. Yeah, it's really
The
special.
I The idea of using photos of your patients along the walls in your company to reinforce the vision and the mission of your organization and to reinforce the values is just beautiful to me. I think that that's so wonderful, reminding your employees of who you are and why you're doing the work that you do. Tell me about the different stakeholders with whom you're communicating. You've already mentioned Lowe's, you've mentioned healthcare companies, insurers, you've mentioned your patients. Talk to me about the different where you feel you thrive as Sydney Hughes, CEO of Senior Proof, where you feel you thrive in communicating with those different stakeholders, your employees, your patients, other people that are important to the success of your business.
I always say I'm like the Little Mermaid. I need to be where the people are. If you keep me locked in the office for too long, I start going a little crazy. No, I think my working genius is to really be with other stakeholders, government officials, to share the mission and see the future. Right, by 2030, we will be outnumbered by our aging population. So
Mm,
right now we're stuck in the educating. We're very much educating not only the B2C, right, the caregivers, but equally Washington and lobbyists and government officials, right, because um, they really are the ones that are going to impact the mission more than we
yeah.
can, especially at grassroots level. We have to make sure that we focus on our low income families, right? And that the only way we could do that is with the help of the government, right? And so I think that's really
Right.
where I feel like whether it's one of the biggest payers in the nation, we are educating on fall prevention. We're educating on low cost, high impact solutions. We are, and I think that's really where I shine is being in front of um, elected officials or vice presidents of big companies or presidents, and kind of sharing what the mission is, because the mission, I always say, is bigger than me. And so it's very
Yeah,
easy for me to share the
yeah.
mission, and usually for the most part they agree, and we collaborate somehow to really make an impact in our community. But yeah, I for sure,
Honestly,
as a face of the company, I love sharing the mission, and always say that it's bigger than me or my team. It's really just a God-given mission. Mhm.
and so your that educational component is where you feel you really shine. I didn't realize that you were advocating, and lobbying with elected officials. I mean, obviously it makes sense to do so, but we haven't talked in a while. So I'm like really
Yeah.
interested in this and all the different aspects of your business. So in addition to your staff, the healthcare organizations, you're also talking to government officials, you're doing government affairs work, you're probably doing a bit of community relations as well. You've got employee communications. You are marketing your business on social media. I see that. And so you've got a number of different channels that your company is engaging in.
Mhm.
And I love to hear that where you feel you thrive is in that educational piece, making sure that people understand the mission. And for you, it's a God-given mission.
Mm.
What's the number one challenge that you faced or that you're facing with leaders, and how did you handle it? Let's talk about something perhaps in the past that you may have learned from, the number one communications challenge you had as a leader, and how you handled it.
I think one of the big we were contracted to modify 700 homes in 5 months with a government agency, and you could only
Wow.
imagine the just
The
the
enormity of
amount of
that.
anxiety,
Yeah.
the amount of um, this is very much a human element of what we're doing here. I always say anybody can
Mhm.
install grab bars, anybody can install wheelchairs, but it's the human element is where we shine. And the cultural communication was something that I did not know about. I learned very quickly that
Mm.
I said a certain word, I said free, and I was like, oh, well, this is essentially, this is free, work. And then that person did not appreciate the word free.
Mm.
They kind of kicked back with, I'm deserving of this, like the human element of it. And I didn't realize there's cultural communication, that training that I need,
Mhm.
right? There's certain words that
Yeah.
I can't use in my communication, where I genuinely just wanted to be of service, and but I could see where that person didn't appreciate that word, and I learned quickly that, and of course I apologized, and I didn't mean to offend anyone, but we were just here to be of service, and because we do a lot of government work, we're always the last person on the site, right? I always tell all of our government
Mm.
agents, while you bring in the patients, or while you bring in the community where we could help, we will always be the last one on site. So we will always be the one to get the short end of the stick sometimes, when the caregiver is overwhelmed, or scared because their mother's coming out of rehab, and whatever the case is, there's such a huge
Yeah.
element here, right? So if we do not tread lightly, right, and as a woman in construction, I think I also lead a little differently, and
Yeah.
which because I lead with empathy, and I lead with grace, and I lead with the human element of it. So I learned very quickly. I took a cultural communication class, and then I also took that class into our technicians. So all of our level two
Ah.
background check technicians are also trained in that, because that was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
lesson, that they are the last ones on the site. So we have to make sure we respect everyone's culture, and make sure that there's certain words that we cannot use, and so we're learning, right? We're not perfect by any
Yeah.
means, but we're willing to learn, and learn from those learning lessons. Mhm.
Yeah, what I really admire is that you saw that there was a possible gap in your communication, and you took efforts to rectify that by enrolling in that class and ensuring that the people in your organization, were as well. So, yeah, I mean, communicating with folks in a way that is relevant to them and that honors and dignifies them is something we could all use a lot more of. And in the practice of strategic communications, a huge component of the work that I do is in helping companies understand that when you've got certain stakeholders with whom you're communicating, you've got to communicate with them in a way that is meaningful for them, in a way that is relevant for them, and in a way that is really going to inspire and move them to take an action, whatever that action is that you want them to take. In your case, whether that's to support a piece of legislation, to change policy, to write an article, to work with you to build a home, your employees and the way that they engage with your patients, your clients. So thank you for sharing that. What has worked most successfully for you as CEO, in communicating with different stakeholders? Like, what is that? You talked about being a woman leader. Um, I spoke with another leader, a woman leader, who mentioned the same thing. She works in the auto parts industry, like one of the few. But is there something in Sydney? We know you're a woman. We know you're Latina. Is there something in Sydney that's helped you communicate more successfully with your different stakeholders? And what do you think that thing is?
I want to start off by saying that I invest a lot of time in myself. I read a lot of books, and I learn from a lot of other leaders. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and
Mhm.
their learning lessons, right? I don't call them mistakes, I call them
Yeah.
learning lessons. So
Yeah.
I take bits and pieces from other leaders, and just, that's where the Vistage comes in, right? And learning from each other. But what I've learned is, the second that I am vulnerable, right? And we created a feedback loop every Friday feedback loop. And so what we do
Mhm.
is, we have a feedback loop. I'll start off with what I'm struggling with this week, and what's really, with my leadership team, what's really going a little sideways for me, where I need help, and I need clarity on here, and so then what that leads is, because I opened up that avenue of transparency, it also
Mhm.
causes everyone else to open up, and then we start
Yeah.
collaborating, and so being uncomfortable with what's going on, I think, is equally powerful around a boardroom, because it can't just always be problem solving. There's such a human element of like, I'm really struggling with this, or and then they start collaborating on solutions. And sometimes we get to we solve a problem, sometimes we don't, but at least that person feels confident enough to say it out loud, right? And see how we could
Yeah.
support them. So I think that was has been my and I got that from, I forgot what podcast it was, but I thought that was really powerful too, having a feedback loop of what's working right and what's not working.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, as a I train people on vocal empowerment. I'm a certified Step Into Your Moxie facilitator, and one of the things that we say is that when you use your voice powerfully, when you are vulnerable, when you are when you show other people that it's okay to communicate whatever it is that's inside, you give them permission to do the same. And so I wholeheartedly agree with you that you as leader doing that gives the folks in your organization permission to do the same, and creates a sense of psychological safety as well for folks, so that and I think that that spurs innovation, that spurs creativity, that spurs growth.
Mm.
So, my thank you for that, Cindy. My final question for you is about your sort of pie in the sky dream. And if you could wave a magic wand, what would you want the world to understand most deeply about you or the work that you do at Senior Proof? While you think
But
about that, let me do something real quick. There's this weird light happening here. Okay, go ahead.
um, I thought about this, and really wholeheartedly, we need to realize that this is a mega trend that's happening, right? Our aging population
Mm,
will outnumber us sooner than later. And I really just hope that people are more proactive to aging, right? I always say aging
mm,
is it is an honor to age, right? And so if
yeah,
as much as people proactively plan for the future, they financially plan and they invest in their 401k and they do all that fun stuff. That's great,
and invest in their health.
and invest in their health. They are forgetting that their home is they're
Mm,
equally as important, right? And understanding that um, being proactive instead of reactive to the fall is where we're trying to educate. We're getting a
yeah,
lot of our caregivers are calling us frantically because mom and dad fell and they're too far away and they're in New York and they're in Florida, and they're trying
mm,
to caregive from far away. So it's such a human element to what we're doing. And so I wanna just my wand will always say to be please be proactive to the fall. Please be proactive to their. It's okay to have uncomfortable conversations with your loved one and ask them, hey, do you want to age at home or do you want to live in assisted living facility? Like, what is your plan? Like, we have to have these uncomfortable conversations with their loved ones, not only to respect and dignify where they're aging, right? This is not the
yeah,
caregiver naturally, the ego kicks in and says, or not even the ego, but just the caregiving side, the heart comes in and says, I want to help, I'm going to take over, I'm going to do coordinate, right? But you have to go back, take a step back and ask your aging loved one what they want. It's their life at the end of the
yeah,
day, and it's collaborative journey for both parties. So just being more proactive,
yeah,
having those uncomfortable conversations at first, really is what I would love and I would hope for everyone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Sydney, you have no idea what kind of chord you're striking with me right now. My sisters and I are actively involved in conversations like this with my father and my stepmother, and we did not have those conversations years before. You think your parents are always gonna be strong and powerful until
Mm,
one day they're not, you
mm,
know? And so, what I'm taking away from your magic wand desire is that it's important for me to have those conversations with my now adult children, have those
yeah,
conversations now. Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
Okay, well, I so appreciate your time today. I wish you continued success. I love talking to you, and I hope that we can see more of each other. But thank you so much for
Yeah.
your time. Stay with me for a second. I'm going to end this stream. Thanks everybody for joining
Thank you,
us.
Jennifer.